Okay, Alderman Vaccaro, go ahead whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready. Cannot hear you, Alderman Vaccaro. Very strange.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Unmute yourself again.
Okay. It keeps muting me back for some reason. Anyway, so we'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd,
Present.
Alderwoman Howard,
Present.
Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Boyd,
She's muted.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Here.
Chairman Vaccaro,
Present.
Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Boyd.
Pam, you're still muted.
Can you hear me?
Alderwoman Boyd,
She's here, but she's still muted.
I'm here.
Okay, there we go.
President, you have quorum.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, we did that time. Yeah.
Okay.
For some reason they were staying muted. So let's see. So we'll move the excused alderman to the end. Approval of the minutes from May 12th. Do we get a motion and have approval?
So moved.
Dated May 12th.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
May 12th.
I'm sorry, who was that made the motion? Was it Alderman Boyd, and who seconded?
Alderwoman Howard.
Thank you. Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Boyd, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Chairman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
5 aye votes.
Okay, we've got that out of the way then. So we're gonna do board bill number 21st, introduced by Marlene Davis. It's a curfew in parks that are in her neighborhood. Alderwoman Davis, if you would want to go ahead and let us know what you got. And you're muted still. You got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of your committee. I appreciate you taking this time to hear Board Bill 20. This board bill is a bill that was asked for by residents and most especially needed by the community. All of our parks are experiencing unnecessary loitering, trafficking of drugs, loud music. It's just really out of order. So what we're trying to do is to have our curfew in earlier so that at least the residents around these parks can have some peace of mind in the evenings, and also hopefully curtail some of the unlawfulness that takes place in these parks. So I've chosen to do this for all of the parks in the 19th Ward, not just one, but all of them. So if you could give consideration to this, I would appreciate it. And I'm available for questions, sir.
Okay, so Vice Chairman Boyd, any questions?
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard, any questions? You're muted, Carol.
We'll fix that. I do have one. So this just pertains to the parks in your ward. And that it gives the police the ability to enforce this. Is there a penalty other than to this? I'm just asking for a friend.
Well, as you know, our ordinance for our parks in the city of St. Louis requires you to have a permit to gather. And it also has a curfew that currently is 10 a.m. and that's just too late. Based on all the things that we've been experiencing, and even before the last few months, it is still a detriment to my community to have the curfew that late. And so if you are in there and there's a crowd, I just had a shooting last night in Terry Park, and it just doesn't make any sense anymore. So we have got to have tools for the police to use and tools that our residents know are there to assist them too.
To give them peace, right?
Absolutely, have peace and safety. And
Absolutely.
safety is really involved here.
Okay. All right. I'm just curious because I think I might need to follow suit in some respects here. So we'll talk offline. Okay. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Oh, you're welcome.
Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard. I don't know if she's here. Alderman Muhammad.
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I was late logging on. I was having some computer issues, but can someone just briefly bring me up to speed on what the I guess is it a resolution or board bill?
It's a board bill number 20. It pertains to curfews in Chambers Park, Jet Bank Park, Tiffany Park, prohibiting individuals from being in the park after, I believe it's 7 o'clock. It's board bill number 20, and it only pertains to parks in Alderwoman Davis's ward.
Oh, okay.
It's a curfew.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions. I definitely respect courtesy, and I know that you know what's in the best interest of your constituents in your ward. And I may need to do something similar, not 7 o'clock, but something similar, because I live across the street from a park, and our city parks have gotten out of hand. And because we are down on officers, sometimes when you call, when stuff is going on and gunshots are flying everywhere, sometimes it takes up to 30 minutes to even get an officer down to address some of the issues in our parks. So I truly understand your current concern for the parks in your neighborhood, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Muhammad. I don't know if John's joined us yet. A lot of times it's hard to get on this thing. Okay, Alderman Pam Boyd.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Pam.
So with the atmosphere that we have in the city, we need to look at more.
She's cutting out a lot.
They say they having problems.
Pam, you're cutting out a lot, but I understand the first part that they're having problems in the city and in the parks.
Yeah.
And you cut out a lot. Is there questions that you had or no?
No, I don't have any questions.
keep losing.
Yeah, no, Pam, I keep losing you. I'm thinking she doesn't have any more questions, I think.
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay, thanks, Pam. I'm sorry, you kept losing you for some reason. Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, you always got it. Anyway, and I don't have any real questions. I know, didn't Alderman Bosley try to do something similar and had trouble citywide, or I might be dreaming that too, because it almost seems to me like this wouldn't be a very bad thing to do citywide. But it might be hard.
Mr. Chairman, I don't remember Alderman Bosley, but one of the things I wanted to also clarify is it does not preclude a resident from getting a permit who may want to have an anniversary party or a child's birthday party. And it runs past 7 o'clock, but it's permitted. We know who's there, what the purpose is, and the expectations of their ending time. So again, it allows us have more control.
Okay, well, I have no real questions. You know, like I said, it's your ward. If someone wants to make a motion that we pass board bill number
So moved.
20.
So moved. So moved.
Okay, Carol, and Jeffrey seconded it, I think.
I second.
Previous roll.
Alderman Boyd seconded it.
Previous roll.
Oh, previous roll. Well, we can't because we have people that joined us after the fact. So, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Hubbard,
Well, I think it's Howard's next. Oh, no, yeah.
Alderman Howard, right.
Aye. I'm sorry.
These sheets are messed up.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Boyd,
Pam, is your mic off again?
No, my mic not.
Oh, okay.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
I'm aye.
Chairman Rivera,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad,
Aye.
7 I vote.
Okay, so we passed that out with 7 aye votes. So now I'm gonna, and you could stay or go as you please. If we can get Kim Gardner on with us. Kim, you know your thing's muted. We don't see your picture, but your
Yeah, I'm
voice-
I'm sharing a screen, so you're not seeing my photo. Okay.
Okay. I have a question, and then I'm going to turn the meeting over to Jeffrey. But and my question has to do with, because I saw in the news where the protesters were not let out, and then I've heard that since then now charges have been made against them, and I guess I was looking for clarification, and then Jeffrey's going to take over from there.
Well, would you like me to go through my whole presentation and then ask that question at the end?
So Vice Chairman Boyd, why don't I let you take over, and I can ask my question at the end. I can ask at the end.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank the circuit attorney for being willing to make a presentation. There's been a lot of conversation about the diversion program and how it's working and how it's benefiting the city. So we had conversation, and she agreed to make a presentation about her program, you know, how it started, you know, where we are in the process, how it's making a significant impact on the city. So with that, again, thank you, Madam Circuit Attorney. And do you have anybody else that will be making presentations with you?
No, I have my first assistant that will probably clarify some things if I can't answer that, but that I'll be making the presentation myself.
So you're the only one that's logged in from your office, is that correct?
No, Serena Wilson Griffin, she's probably logged in from my office, my first assistant.
I don't see her.
This
She's
is
like-
Serena Wilson Griffin. It's also logged in
Okay.
under the circuit
Yeah.
attorney.
I see it. Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Circuit Attorney, it's all yours.
Well, thank you. I want to thank the Public Safety Committee, Vice Chair and Chair for giving me this opportunity to really talk about where we are and what we're doing, why diversion and alternatives are important. 4 years ago, the people of the city of St. Louis came together to support a new vision for our criminal justice system, a vision centered around the need for change, a vision that valued the voice of our community, and a vision that abandoned the failed policies that the past that focused on incarceration, that made all of us less safe and failed to protect us. Instead, the people of the city of St. Louis followed a new path, one that actually advances public safety while promoting healing, community well-being, and community trust. In 4 short years, despite constant pushback from a powerful few, we have taken enormous steps toward making that vision a reality. We have dramatically reduced jail and prison incarceration. We have started programs that put charged individuals on the right path and helped our victims find closure and healing. This COVID-19 pandemic has really shown us how interconnected we all are. We can't focus on a single group of people, a single issue, or a single event, and believe that by doing so, we will change and protect this entire community. Promoting the health and safety of all people in the city of St. Louis is a goal that we can only achieve by recognizing that we are all part of the greater whole and that we must work together. So when first taking office, we set out to transform a broken criminal justice system that criminalized poverty, tore apart families, and undermined public safety. The system was based on policies driven by fear, not facts. But fear can lead us to push away others, to deny their humanity, to focus on isolated negative outcomes, and to be preoccupied with assigning blame. None of those help us improve and heal our city. Instead, our office has used evidence, research, and facts to guide us, not so we can point a finger or identify fault, but so we can move forward together towards a new St. Louis. And I'm proud of the changes we have made in such a short time to the criminal justice system. So let's get started. My approach to public safety and crime reduction. That's what I'm going to talk about today. Talk about the criminal justice system issues to address. And then I'm going to share some of the circuit attorney's data that you guys are looking for. Public safety and harm reduction approach. That means we have to treat crime as a public health crisis. We have to address the root causes of why individuals are going to the criminal justice system. We have to address the economic and mental health issues that factor in why people commit crime. And we have to invest in needed resources at the front of the criminal justice system rather than being reactive and on the back end. And we also have to reduce harm to victims and families and communities by breaking the cycle of victimization. Overall issues to address. We must stop relying on arresting and incarcerating people as the sole strategy to reduce crime in the city. We must reform the criminal justice system to make it fair or more just. We again have to stop the cycle of victimization, and we have to reduce mass incarceration. How we do those things is we have to build trust and confidence in the criminal justice system by enhancing witness and victim protection programs, trauma-informed counseling, victim witness safety legislation, community engagement, neighborhood ownership model, and other resident improvement crime reduction approaches, conviction integrity, partner with Missouri Innocence Project, and our benchmark case is Lamar Johnson, and law enforcement credibility and accountability. Can you guys see my screen?
Madam Circuit Attorney, there was a chat message from the IT person with the city to say that you need to reshare your screen because he took it off before the meeting got started. So you're resharing, no one can see it.
Okay. Hold on just a minute. Let me mute and.
And Ms. Garner, this is Serena. If you have challenges, I can share my screen with the presentation and you just tell me next slide. We can all see it now.
Can you guys see it now?
Yes.
Okay, where did I leave off? This one?
Yes.
So just to re-explain the public safety and harm reduction approach, treat crime as a public health crisis, get to the root causes of what drives individuals to the criminal justice system, address the economic and mental health issues that are factors of why people commit crime, invest in the needed resources on the front end of the criminal justice system rather than on the back end, reduce harm to victims, families, and address the cycle of victimization. Overall issues. We must stop the sole reliance on arresting and incarcerating people as the sole strategy to reduce crime in our city. We must reform the criminal justice system to make it fair and more just. We have to stop the cycle of victimization and reduce mass incarceration. How we do those things is build confidence in the criminal justice system by enhancing victim and witness programs, trauma-informed counseling services, which we have brought inside our office, sponsor victim and witness safety legislation, which we have done, enhance community engagement, work on neighborhood ownership model and other resident improvement, involvement crime reduction approaches, the conviction integrity unit, which the benchmark case is Lamar Johnson. Law enforcement credibility and accountability is essential to my ability to pursue justice. Now, we also have to build confidence in the criminal justice system. Is I hear a lot of people say that I don't get along with police. I get along with police officers who go out and do their job the right way, following the law, enforcing it when it needs to be forced, treating the community members with dignity and respect. And we've worked to foster an even stronger working relationship with law enforcement, specifically Police Chief Hayden. Our office has established a police liaison position, Captain Ron Johnson in the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office, dedicated to establishing strong connections with the city, state, and federal law enforcement. My job is not to get along with every police officer all the time. My job is to serve my community. It does not serve the community to turn a blind eye to any public official, including police officers who commit misconduct. And it does not serve the community to seek convictions based on the testimony of witnesses, civilian or police officers who lack credibility, especially when doing so will result in a person being sent to jail or prison. If certain police officers are angry because we are increasing accountability, then so be it. If Jeff Rorta is mad because we are holding police accountable and people accountable, then we are doing the right thing. We believe that proper police accountability is critical to increasing trust in the system, and that leads to increased public safety. And so in my first term, we do not rely on the testimony of police officers who have been found to be untruthful, engaged in misconduct, or publicly comments evidencing racial, ethnic, or religious prejudice. So that's why we have the exclusion list, because this addresses that mistrust in the criminal justice system. It also deals with these small everyday slights of inhumanity that some police officers who are engaging in communities that need police the most have these slights of disrespect that we're thinking about when we have an incident like Mr. George Floyd, how the police officer in a cavalier, uncaring way murdered a man in front of our eyes. But it's these everyday slights that we don't hear about that causes the mistrust that we have to rebuild. And when we talk about the cycle of victimization, that's stopping the victimization of how people in communities that need police the most, who want police in their communities, they want to be treated with dignity and respect, for fear of not just law enforcement, but the whole system, for fear that the police will over arrest them, for fear that the prosecutor will overcharge them, for fear that the courts will sentence them to longer periods of time. So that's what we're talking about, building trust. in the criminal justice system. How we improve the safety and well-being of the community is by focus on the most violent offenders. That's why we have a crime enterprise program, crime strategies unit working with the gang intervention unit to identify those crime drivers by using data, as well as knowing those criminal actors that need to be taken and aggressively prosecuted, changing our marijuana charging policy, bail reform, using summonses on low-level felonies and misdemeanors and for conditional release, strengthen our investigative expertise in the circuit attorney's office and investigative staff, and witnesses of violent crime program, which helps with relocation and giving victims as well as witnesses opportunities to feel free and safe from harm. So by the numbers. So everyone talks about numbers. They talk about what is my conviction rate? What am I doing? Why are we doing things differently? Are we not holding people accountable? But I want to tell you that proof is in the numbers, and numbers do not lie. So this is from 2015 up to 2019. We have a 96% overall felony conviction rate. That's our numbers. This has been checked and tested with police data as well as court data. This case report kind of goes into giving you a snapshot of what we do. So when we look at case severity, we have 57% of felonies that come into our office. 29% of those are misdemeanors. Then we look at race. 76% of the total cases are African Americans. 23% are white. We look at the age display. Most of the cases fall within the age range of 20 to 29. And the pink is female, the blue is male. So this gives you a snapshot of case report. This also gives you the snapshot from 2015 to 2019, the total cases issued. And this gives you from 2015 to 2019, cases refused. So as you see, in 2015, before I took office, 48% of the cases were issued, 52% were refused. It's still within the same range. So now we have to determine what type of cases are we seeing. So this is kind of giving you a snapshot, a big overview of what we see, okay? We're giving you the map of kind of the areas that are shaded by where this total cases are coming from, misdemeanors and felony. So now we're gonna look at referred versus issued charges. So these are the top 10 charges that police bring to us in 2019. Possession of controlled substance, armed criminal action, unlawful possession of a weapon, unlawful use of a weapon, domestic assault third, property damage first, burglary second, robbery first, trespassing first. These are referred charges. These are the top referred charges. So that means 70% of the referred charges of possession, which is the number one referred charge that the police bring in, 70% of those charges are refused. So we issue about 30%. And if you look at the total amount of cases that are brought in for 2019, that's 3,539. So you kind of have an idea. And then you look at armed criminal action, that's the second highest referred charge. 67% are referred, about 33% are issued. That's the national average in terms of issuing rate. So let's go to 2015 and compare it. The top 10 charges are possession, armed criminal action, unlawful possession of a firearm, unlawful use of a weapon. Well, they brought less cases total, 2,815 in 2015. They brought more cases in 2019 under my tenure, 3,539, and about 58% were referred and 42% of those referred cases were issued. But as you can see, that the number one charge is the same in 2015 that the police bring in, the referred charges. And armed criminal action, if you look at that, it's around the same number that have referred and issued. And we see and we see that the same type of same issues of robbery first, 67% referred, about 33% issued. Now you may say, well, why are these, what's the reason why these cases may not have been issued, these issued charges, charges. So let's look at, these are the top refusal reasons. So in 2019, the number one the reason for refusals of possession were refusal for lack of evidence. The second highest reason was refused for victim unavailability. And the third reason was refused because victim refused to assist. So this is the top 3 refusal reasons of why these charges, of the top 10 charges that came in 2019 were not issued. But what I'm saying is not to slam the police, not to slam their work. One of the things we're doing is when you look at data, we have to look at how we have different challenges. We have, in 2017, when I took office, we had changes in the criminal code. We had changes, we have our gun laws gutted out and disintegrated. So we have hardly any state gun laws, as well as we enacted stand your ground laws. So these are changes. We actually have higher level of discovery rules where we have to require more evidence up front, which was different from when you look at 2015. Still, if you look at that, the refusal charge was assault third. The top charge was assault third. And the number one reason was refused for lack of evidence. The second was refused for victim availability. And the third was refused for victims, refuses to assist. So those are the top 3 charges. Now we're gonna look at, I hear people saying, well, and this is somehow to answer some of the questions of the chairman who asked, well, we hear that cases weren't brought to you and you didn't do anything with these cases. So I'm gonna go through what's called incidents reported by the St. Louis Police Department. And again, this is not to point fingers. This is just to really give you a snapshot of what we see and what we don't see. So incidents reported by the St. Louis Police Department. So in 2018, we have the gray column talking about not referred and referred. So in 2018, under my tenure, 56% of the assaults in 2018 never were referred to my office. Only 44% of those were referred. In 2019, 63% of those assaults were not referred to my office. That means they never came over to our office. And 37% of those were referred. In 2018, burglary, 88% of burglaries in the city of St. Louis were not coming to the office. So when you hear like we had nothing's been done and people are complaining in your communities, because 88% in 2018 and 12% were referred. So this is the snapshot. And this is not saying the police are not doing their job. There's many factors where there's no witnesses, no one wants to come forward, or it's not a victim. So these are things that you have to have. This is not point and blame on anybody. This is giving you a context that every time a police officer makes a arrest, it does not automatically come to my office for charges. So we look at 2019, 89% of burglary cases were not referred to my office, only 11%. In 2018, 58% of the homicides were not referred. Well, we already know that prior to me even taking office, over 60% of murders are unsolved. We know that. 42% were referred. In 2019, 73% were not referred. 27% were referred. Go through the list. 2018 robbery, 76% of robberies in 2018 were not referred. 24%. And then you can see by districts and on the map where these not referred happen in these different districts, District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4, District 5, and District 6. And so you kind of can see. So when you hear people saying, well, oh, nothing happened. Well, a lot of times, most of these cases are not coming to the circuit attorney's office. And this is not to point blame. There's a reason. Everything can't come to the office. Every case can't be made. This is not saying the police are not doing their job. This is just showing you the challenges that we all face when we have trust in the criminal justice system, when we don't have that cooperation, and we have to really be proactive, because this is important. Now we look at this report. So I hear people saying the crime is so horrible, the crime is bad. Yeah, the crime has been historically horrible in the city of St. Louis. The blue line is showing you the violent crime rate from 2008 to 2018. The blue is the national average. We've historically been 3 times higher than the national average. And if you see in 2017, that's when we had our gun laws driven by the AG, who took the vote to disintegrate our state gun laws, to add and make and enact stand your ground laws that gives everyone a self-defense claim who has a gun. So that is a big issue. And those cases went up. We had one, when I took office, once every 2.5 weeks, we had an officer-involved shooting case because more people had access to guns. So that's a direct correlation to that spike. And as you see the trend in 2018, violent crime is going down overall, but it's still not enough. And I understand it. So I'm not saying that we are, it's not enough, but we have to understand what these statistics are saying is that when you talk about a conviction rate, this is not scratching the surface of the violent crime that we have to deal with. And it's many factors. And so when you want to use a 20th century approach to give this snapshot of conviction rate as the sole factor of success in the office, when you know that trials in certain types of cases are less than 4% of the total work we do, then that's a problem. But we are in the 21st century, so we have to have 21st century tools to address how we address violent crime in the city. And we have to be proactive. Being reactive is perpetuated mass incarceration for centuries and decades. So why do we continue to use the flawed approaches that we see from 2008 has not scratched the surface? And we need to do more, but we didn't get here overnight. You're not gonna see these magic results overnight, but we can show you results in the small period of time we've been doing some of these things. So we get to diversion. This is showing you from 2017 to 2019 how we accepted more diversion participants going forward. We screened in 2019 over 2,500 individuals. So, and we are accepting more, and more people are completing diversion. Of course, we would like to expand it and have more people, but that requires resources. And right now, we're showing a less than 1% recidivism rate for individuals who come back into our program, and we're still monitoring that. It's still relatively new, but that's been successful, and we want to expand these programs because these programs work, and this is how you get to the root cause of what drives individuals to the criminal justice system, giving them the services that they need. We bring therapists inside this office. We interview and we help domestic violence and sexual assault individuals. We do all kinds of things that are, one, building that trust that we need. So when we ask the community to hold a violent individual accountable, they trust our office because we're not just coming to them when we need help on a case. We actually care about their conditions and their whole family. So we're doing a lot of good work, and we want to continue that work. The CAO's office and counseling and intervention services has touched thousands of people to address the core issues that I just talked about. And we have touched more than 4,000 people in 2019. And I want to commend my victim services unit because they are constantly working and being innovative of bringing these services with the limited budget we have to address that cycle of victimization. So I thank you. Any questions?
Okay, Secretary, thank you so much for that presentation. Let me just go around the room. Let me pull up public safety cheat sheet. Okay, can you stop sharing your screen for us, Madam Circuit Attorney?
There you go.
Thank you. Alderwoman Howard, any questions?
Yes, the circuit attorney mentioned her diversion programs, and I guess what is the methodology and how do we measure the success of those programs?
Well, one of the things we measure is recidivism rate. And so we said we have less than 1% recidivism rate, which is unheard of in any program. Most cases that go through the regular case processing system and get on probation and parole, they have over a 40% chance of recidivating. So if we have less than 1% of a program that saves our city more money, so we can put to services in the community, this is showing great success. But since this is a relatively new program and we're still continuing to measure data, you know, we're seeing success. I like to use Milwaukee, who has established diversion programs for over 5 years now. So they have a data set that shows that they screen all of their cases, even serious violent cases, for diversion, and their recidivism rate is less than 5% overall.
I am not real. What are specific the methods of diversion? What types of activities are criminals involved in to divert them from committing crime again?
Well, first we do
specific. I mean, just give me a list of what types of things, because I'm unfamiliar.
Well, we do trauma-informed counseling. We have a young offenders diversion program, which is that 17 to 25. Those individuals are more likely to be victims of crime as well as perpetrators of crime. So we deal with that trauma of experiencing a loved one lost to violence or a loved one incarcerated. So we give them that trauma-informed counseling. Their brain is still developing. So we also give them cognitive behavior therapy classes, which teach them how to make better decisions, because that's what they need. We also require them to be in school full-time, as well as job employment opportunities by working with Slate as well as Employment Connections. And we work with other alternatives. We give people an individual plan of community service. So they also have a restorative justice piece where if the victim or anyone wants to have a restorative justice kind of a situation where we mediate and they understand why this happened to them, then we arrange that. But we also have them pay back restitution 100% to that victim if there is restitution. So there's many different things that we do. We monitor, it's a phase in, they have to be drug tested randomly. They appear in court and have a status update. But then we also, one, deal with how they make better decisions and how they engage in community. And we also have an innovative program of how we see them. And so a lot of the young people we found, they feel like they're invisible. So we have to have an open discussion of how people see them in their community and how they want the community to see them. And you'll be surprised that this is therapy and addresses a lot of the issues that they're dealing with, because people who have been involved in the criminal justice system have more issues of mental health, of poverty, and they want to talk through these things. So this is not just for that individual, it's for their whole family. And we do a family support meeting, because what we found is if we help that individual, we're also helping their family. So we're stopping the revolving circle for their family.
What about the victims of crime? Is that a separate track, or is that, I mean, I'm confused because I feel like you're talking about victims and offenders.
Yes, most victims become perpetrators and vice versa. So a lot of these individuals are victims on other cases as well as perpetrators, but we also have victim input in who is in our diversion program. So we reach out to victims, we get their input, they tell us what they want to see, and they also have a voice in the plan for this individual if they agree with diversion.
So if I'm robbed, I'm also a perpetrator? I'm getting confused.
You could be, but that's an individual circumstance. But robbery first, most robberies are not allowed in our diversion program. So that will not be a case that we'll be dealing with.
Okay. Okay. And then the victims are counseled also?
Yes, we have services for victims for their trauma. And that's done in a separate form through our victim services unit, because we kind of separate diversion participants and victim services. And so they're more likely deal with our programs in victim services. And so we give them trauma-informed counseling, we give them therapy that they're needed, and they come inside the office to address whatever concerns they need, regardless of if they have a case.
So if I'm there, I might be with the person that assaulted me, or no?
If you come into the court building or any city building or out in the community, you could be with someone who may have committed a crime. So that's not, they're not interacting with each other. But when we say bring services, we have a special place where diversion participants are stationed and come and check up in the courts. And then they have another area inside our office for victims, which is totally separate from diversion participants. So they do not interact in any way.
Okay. Do you have numbers on that? I guess that's all, including what you presented. Okay.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, and thank you, Circuit Attorney Gardner, for coming on. And I guess I'm grateful that we finally have real numbers to look at. This is what I've been waiting to see, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about our conviction rates and stuff like that. And so I'm glad that we do have real numbers out there. And I would definitely like to have this emailed or something, some type of way, so I can properly educate my constituents on what their concerns are regarding the data, the real data, and not the stuff you just hear in the news. And I guess in looking at some of the numbers, and I know that you talked about what the numbers were in 2015 opposed to what they have been under your watch, but I guess I'm still concerned about the disparity in the number of cases that are referred and the ones that are actually issued on. Can you speak to what the attributing factors are to that? I mean, I know some of them you said lack of evidence, you had a whole list of things, but I guess, I feel that we are training our police officers and spending a lot of money training them. It seems there's a disconnect. I would like to know, like, what's going on with the process that our numbers are that lopsided. I feel if they bring something forth, and they should know, they should have a checklist, know whatever they need to, address the crime and make the arrest and all this. So then when it gets over there, it's like, what's going on that, these cases aren't being issued on? Can you speak to that some, just for clarification for me?
Well, that's a very good question. First of all, I just want to address the data. The data took 2 years to compile and to check against police as well as court data. So that's why it takes so much time. This is a very intensive process because we want to make sure the data is correct and not give you incorrect data. Second of all, what I want to lead with, this is not determination of whether the police are doing their job. What is determined of that a lot of times people, make police, call the police, there's an issue, but when for whatever reason, it could be a witness is not available. It could be, for example, a lab result. It turns out that whatever substance they thought was drugs was not a drug. A lot of times, if in victim cases, there is lack of evidence and they have to continue to investigate. So that is not saying that the investigation cannot be continued, but they're saying a lot of times there are cases that there's no one who's going to come forward. So I think it's a very complex question, and it's not this just one size fits all kind of, they are not doing their job or they're not any better training. Of course, everyone needs better training. I'm not saying that, but I think that in some cases that people bring that should not be issued. And that's just historically why who you charge, what you charge is very important. And that's where the criminal justice reform model talks about, we have to really strengthen and bring cases that are about public safety and harm reduction. So why that's important is because you see from those slides, most of the cases brought in 2019 were possession cases. Those are cases that we refuse more likely because of the public safety and harm reduction, as well as other issues. But we issued around the same percent that 2015 issued. So even historically, they can bring 10 to 13,000 cases. About 30-something% of those cases total are going to be issued. So that's not something that's out of the norm for any jurisdiction, even the city of St. Louis. I want to make sure we, establish that this is not pointing fingers at the police. That's just saying that this kind of black or white type of looking at the data. That's why I have to explain the data to people, because a lot of people look at it, well, the police are not doing their job. We're not saying that. It's just that cases sometimes can be issued, and there's many different reasons. And most of those cases should not be issued sometimes because they have very serious actual problems. And so that means how we train our officers and what a criminal justice reform minded prosecutor is asking the police to do is let's focus our time on those violent crimes where you saw when you have referred cases. So we need to spend more time on those assaults, burglaries, robberies, and cases that are difficult because their lack of victim participation. People don't want to come forward. That's why the strategy of building trust in the whole criminal justice system is key, because you will see that number, which you will see a change in the number of 56% of assaults are referred or not referred. If you go back to that one slide in 2018, and 44% of those are referred. That's why we have to strengthen the relationship. So that's why these policies of holding people accountable, even police, is crucial. That's why making sure when individuals are not credible, whether you're in the community or not, we do not bring cases. That's why we have to, make sure we focus on those crime drivers and focus on looking at those cases, because we're failing to realize that even when a case is not referred, we have what's called statute of limitations. So say a murder is no statute of limitations. So you can bring that back at any time, but that's where we have to get people to come forward. And we have to address the blue code of silence of the police department, because the same silence in the police department is the same silence in the community. So we can't ask the community to do what the police won't do when they see some of the officers who are the bad apples, who they see them eroding the trust of the community by these everyday slights I talked about. That's how we have to build that trust. And that's when you see those cases being more referred, because people are more likely to come forward. That's why these important programs like addressing trauma and victimization is so key to participation. But we have to also understand we got a lot of work to do, and this did not happen overnight. These are the same flawed approaches from decades that we kept perpetuating, and now we have to do something different. The definition of sanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, and it takes time. So, I look forward to working with the police department. I know me and Police Chief Hayden have made a lot of inroads on looking at how they can better police and bring those cases, strengthening up the cases up front, really working how to exchange evidence, and working with Captain Ron Johnson to identify how we can address their issues and our issues also. So we're working together, but it takes a long time.
Thank you so much for that, and I'm glad to hear that everyone is working together, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Alderman Muhammad.
No, I have no questions, Mr. Chairman. Great job, Circuit Attorney. I support you 100%.
Thank you.
Alderman Pam Boyd.
I hear you gave us the numbers and the information. So where are those programs done? I know they come from your office, but are you doing anything within the community so people know what's going on?
Well, you guys are giving the first brush of me releasing this, and then that's my duty that, I'm looking to you guys to set up meetings in the community that I can break down this data. And this is the first time that I'm able to share this data in a way that I feel that it's been compared against police and court data. So I look forward to working with you guys to share this with the community and take all the questions. So please schedule your appointment.
I guess my question, why I'm asking is because I've been asking for a while, what programs do you have? What are they doing? And so I'm a visual person, so I don't have a problem with what you're doing. I'm just having the problem that I don't know where it's at or how it's happened. And so I think that was my question.
So you're talking about diversion programs, or you talking about in general? Alderman Boyd?
Accused of these crimes, but in the same time, I'm dealing with a community and I have to explain what you're doing, but I can't get the information so I can give it out properly. That's what I'm asking.
Well, yes, ma'am. This, like I said before, this is the first time we were able to this data was not available till recently. So this is not a slight on anyone or trying to withhold information. We had to keep, checking it against the police data as well as court data. We had to make sure the data is correct and not incomplete. So I didn't want to release this to give you guys incomplete data. So that's why it takes so long. So just in these 2 years, that took a long time because there's many different things and we have to use and factor. And I dedicated a data services to our office to try to look at data. And this is like, we have to go in, like I said before, go case by case sometimes, because a lot of this stuff was not in the computer because we were 6 versions behind when I first got into office. So when I said upgraded that technology, and I took some of you guys on a tour to show you, to really get into this data, we had to really dive into it. So it took a lot. So it took long because it does take long to get you the right data. So that's why I look forward to, this is the first time I'm able to comfortably release it.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions, Alderwoman?
No, thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions. Circuit Attorney Kim Garner, you know how much I support you and I believe in your programming. And so you know that I will be helping you to get this information out in the community and just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, Circuit Attorney, I have a few questions. I appreciate you talking about the process and how that works. But give me a couple success stories from this diversion program that you've been working. Can you help us, give us a visual on a couple of successes?
Well, first of all, there's so many success stories, but I'll go to just some of the ones that, I've talked to individuals who have basically stated, but for this program, they were not on the right track. Someone gave them a chance. They could not believe that they got the services from the prosecuting attorney's office. And they felt like at first they could not trust the system, but for the tools that they learned in the diversion programs, by having that individual attention, having that kind of like mentorship that we have by having Mr. Victor Ali, who's a returning citizen, who's for 30 years, that is a mentor to a lot of these young men who do not want to go where he wants to go. So we have this unique approach to inspire these young people that, to address the hopelessness that we're dealing with in our communities. And many people have become truck drivers. They have businesses that are willing to hire some of these young diversion participants. They're willing to come and they say to testify to anyone to show the success. But I don't like to use individuals, as my tool to say diversion works. I want the numbers to speak for itself. And we're increasing the screening of those cases. We're accepting more, and having less than 1% recidivism rate is unheard of. And so I like the numbers to speak for itself, but we have a lot of success stories. We have people who were found homes because we help. And this is not just in coordination with just my office. This is working with Sergeant Ogilvie on the gang intervention unit. He's key with the police partnership, really helping people find homes, find housing, find employment. So it's a coordinated effort that the police are involved in this. And we want to expand that because it's so crucial that how we build trust with the community. We work with probation and parole as a partner. They're not on probation and parole, but we use them to really help monitor some of the individuals that are not as high needs as our young offenders. We bring therapists inside our office that have a unique skill set to address some of the traumas and be that mentor to that individual who can call them around the clock. So these are things that we put our resources in, and this is around the clock and it's ever changing. And for them to see that we care, that is the key to success in diversion programs. And even I've gone to court and had to speak to some participants because if I'm gonna stand on this program, I'm gonna be a part of it. And so I'm not trying to say, oh, Kim Gardner, we do everything great. But in terms of that program, you can ask defense counsel, you can ask many participants, they feel like we care and they don't feel like we're just trying to set them up for failure. And that's the key. It's a partnership. Their success is our success. And we go together and on this journey because we don't want to see them come back. And we found that they even refer participants to our program. And we have a lot of referrals for participants who have friends and family members who get in a bind, who want to hear, and they hear about the good work. So there's a lot of success stories, I would love to come back and have a person come and talk about their success story because I don't want to offend them. And I think it's better for them to kind of speak to that.
And Madam Circuit Attorney, if I may. Madam Circuit Attorney, if I may.
Yes, you may.
Yes, as the secretary attorney said, it's difficult because you don't want to give out the individuals. You want to allow them the opportunity to tell their story if they deem it appropriate. But what I will say is what we've also found, as the secretary attorney mentioned earlier, it not only helps that individual, it helps the entire family. We've had participants whose parents have now come to us and talked about the different skills that they learned through their children by watching them go through these things that they never learned or never had access to. And it really is about disrupting that generational cycle. It doesn't just stop it with that one individual. They actually go back and become a teacher for their parents and for, other individuals in their family. And that's what that really is about as well.
Okay, and certainly I appreciate, it seems like everything you're doing is evidence-based, it's based on data. I think it's about time we as government, start focusing more on data as we make our decisions. Let me ask you this though, because the Sex Support program is based on measurable outcomes. Have you put together a report card, kind of like your annual report or something that just kind of gives a snapshot of the success of the program, a visual that people can see?
Well, we're working on that. We haven't had a final report because, like I said, this stuff is changing. And so we want to make sure we put out appropriate data because it's always changing. And so for one snapshot and period, it'll be changed in 2 or 3 months. So we will, work on getting that together so people can see that.
Okay, in your program, who makes the decision on whether or not somebody is a viable candidate for the diversion program?
Well, it's a unique coordinated effort. So the ultimate last decision is myself, but it's made up of a team of individuals that have a unique skill set. Like I said, I rely on Sergeant Ogilvy in the gang intervention unit, who is dealing with the police partnership program. So a lot of times we have young individuals and our young offenders that have gang affiliation. So a lot of times I seek his experience and knowledge on whether this person is a risk to the program, because right now we're trying to build the program so we can expand it to take more risks. So he does an assessment also. We use Mr. Khatib Waheed, who does a lot of our Ohio risk assessment. That's one tool in a multi-level of toolboxes. We also have therapists that do some kind of therapeutic type assessments of trauma. So we have many tools that utilize. In our drug education class, we use the ranch that determines the whether they're a higher level of addiction, which we refer to drug court, which can deal with that higher level of a addicted person. But we also have addiction physicians like Dr. Turner, who is working to develop a tool to screen, and I'm using her as evidence-based of that public health model. So it's not a decision that I make by myself. I surround myself with those individuals that give me the tools that have a complete picture of that individual. And we also ask the person who wants to get into the program, we do a family assessment. We tell them to bring their family members, whatever that family is. So it could be a friend is their family, loosely associated. We don't pressure them to say that if they have a mother or father, we bring that person that really helps them out the most. And we get to know them, and we hear their side with their attorney. And we have many success stories of how that engagement really determines where we are now, where we have direct correlation to a low recidivism rate, because we take time to really assess individuals. And it's a very intensive type of assessment, but those are what we need, because diversion is not just about a second chance. It's actually getting to those root causes of why the individual is here in the first place. And we want that person never to go back. So diversion is not this easy, get off, hold your hand type program. It's actually harder than probation and parole. And that's why we are engaged. We are engaged from the assessment. We're engaged from the front, but we want to make sure that these successful tools that we have worked with Washington U Brown School of Brown School of Social Work, as well as Florida State, we have put tools together that shows doing these things will make us more successful. And that's why the process is very complex. It's not just this, you sign this paper and we interview you and we do this. Every person has an individual plan. That's the key, individualized plan.
I only have two more questions.
Madam Secretary Attorney, if I may weigh in one.
Yes, please.
And what I would add to what the Secretary said, she mentioned it earlier, but I did want to reiterate it. When these are victim cases, victims are also asked to weigh in and given their feedback as to whether or not the person should be considered for diversion as well.
Okay. Second to last question. Do you have written guidance or policies on your diversion program?
Yes, we've had.
Okay. And the last question is, how many participants on your program?
Right now, we have, we have a total of 522 participants at this time and growing.
Wow, okay. Thank you very much. I'm gonna ask if other members of the Board of Aldermen, okay, I'm gonna come back, I'm sorry, I need to go back to the chair. I think I know the question he wants to ask, so I'm going back to the actual chair of the Public Safety Committee, Vaccaro.
Thank you for acting. Thank you for handling this meeting. I do, I, of course, obviously I hear from a lot of police. My family are police. And I hear from them telling me that they have to bring stuff to the state because they can't get it through your office. But one of the questions, and people are texting me questions like crazy right now. One of them is, during all this, the unrest part of the protest, not the good protesters, but the protesters that were breaking down windows and doing all that. It seemed like they all went to jail and then you let them all out. Out of those that the police brought to you, how many have you charged now? Or are they all still just not charged?
Well, first of all, let's get the misinformation out the way. The AG, in his attempt to cause more fear and pain and divisiveness in already community that is suffering from the ills of racial divide, in the height of Mr. George Floyd's untimely death, put out numbers or put out a number that was simply not true. And why this is important is because I want to make clear there are peaceful protesters, and these individuals that were looting and doing the things that they were doing were not a part of the peaceful protest. So let's separate that. Those are individuals who are preying on the community and using it as an opportunity to do things that they probably plan to do before the protest.
Well, and we agree with that. The question was still the police brought the ones that were not peaceful,
but
the ones that don't represent.
But that's
and it seems like they were out.
But no, let me finish. I understand what you're saying. So you have to have the context. So when police make arrests, not every arrest is coming to the circuit attorney's office, because they could be arrested for many different things: traffic tickets, warrants for traffic tickets, or municipal court violations, which do not come to our office. So when we look at what was brought to our office for potential charges, the state level charges, which were 8 cases, and that's what the cases that were brought to our office, that at that time, the police let us know that they did not have the appropriate admissible evidence, but they were going to bring that back, and they did bring those back. And they're still, I forgot the number, I don't want to put out the number, but it's almost 8 cases. I think 6 out of the 8 are issued, and we're still waiting on the police officer in 2 other cases to come and sign the probable cause statement, because they're busy. So this is not a slight of the police department. This is just, they're doing a lot of work. And these are cases that were presented for possible stealing. So these are not the, some of the things that, I think that some of the misinformation that was put out by the Attorney General to cause more fear and harm.
And Madam Secretary, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important to again address that misinformation, because even the very characterization of the question, it was said that it seems like they were arrested and went to jail and then they got out. There is a continual conversation that's being had that's just simply not accurate. And I think that we are at a time, if never before, where we have to be very careful with our words and be very careful with how we frame the narrative, because there, as the Secretary said earlier, there's a great deal of mistrust in the system. And so when we say these things, people went to jail and then you let them out. We can all agree the Circuit Attorney has no authority to let anyone out of jail, because if that were the case, she would not be fighting for the freedom of Lamar Johnson. And so again, I think that it is irresponsible to continue to frame a narrative in a way that's just simply not accurate. It's misleading to the citizens, but it also continues to feed that mistrust in the system.
And just to piggyback off of what Ms. Serena Wilson Griffin stated, that these are the same attacks that the police union, as well as the Attorney General, is now trying to take the discretion of the city, the sitting prosecutor. Somehow they believe that he knows best police as well as prosecute the streets of the city of St. Louis. So that's the failed Trumptonian mass incarceration, tough on crime rhetoric that is only an act and has no show and proof. And so if you really want to know why people are released under the laws, you can be arrested for 24 hours under the laws of the state of Missouri. If a warrant or a case is not issued within that 24 hours, they're released automatically, not because of the circuit attorney, it's because that's the law under the state of Missouri. You can't hold someone for extended period of time without bringing some type of charges. That's due process. And that's where I think that misinformation is so detrimental, that if you're supposed to be the state of Missouri Attorney General, this mischaracterization is kind of dangerous, because I got a lot of threats because of the misinformation that somehow I don't care about the community. I live in these communities. So when people sit around and say, I don't care about violent crime, those people who say that have never walked a day in the life of me or people who live in North City, who see devastation and destruction of violent crime plagues on the community. So when people use this as a way to say she's not doing her job, I don't point fingers, I do the work. And the work is, I'm not gonna bring cases when there's no admissible evidence, because that's called unethical. And then we have a whole nother conversation. And when you have the rubber stamp for individuals who make a living off of misinformation, the police union led by Jeff Rorter and whatever, he's a free case in unethical police officer who does nothing but stroke the fear and pain of the racial divide, we have a bigger problem. And that's why I want to say I support Police Chief John Hayden and all his work. He's done a great job in spite of all the attacks. And now people are calling for him to take over the police department, because that's the failed rhetoric that somehow he can't do his job. I have zero confidence in Jeff Rorter and the police union. That's what I have. So when you talk about calling for zero confidence, that's never in the history has a police union called for zero confidence of the police chief. But it's ironic that he never called for that for any other time. And I wonder why.
So 6 out of the 8, that was the question. 6 out of the 8 have been charged then, that was the question.
I'm gonna say it's 8 out of 8, but at the
8
time,
out of
we
8.
have two police officers that have to sign the probable cause. We cannot file something without signing a probable cause statement. So all 8 cases have been brought to us, and it's 2 pending because the officers have to come in to physically sign and swear to a probable cause.
Okay, so anyway, Mr. Vice Chairman, I have to leave the meeting because I have something at the front here that I have to address real quick about the defunding of the police department. The media came to my house and they want to know, so I got a text, they're standing outside. So I'm going to pause myself out of the meeting, and I appreciate the opportunity to ask the questions, but I'm gonna head out front real quick.
Okay. I want to, because this is such an important issue, and again, we have colleagues on the line, and I want to extend the courtesy to allow them to ask questions if they would like. I know Alderwoman from the 6th has those questions. Alderwoman from the 13th, Beth Murphy, do you have any questions?
No, thank you. Not at this time, thanks.
Okay.
Stop observing.
I don't see, let me slide over on this screen. I don't see anyone else.
Mr. Chairman, this is the Alderwoman from.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking right at you. I'm sorry, Alderwoman from the 19th, Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Our circuit attorney, I don't necessarily have but one question, because I wanted you to give some additional clarity so that people can understand how the process is, and add in where the grand jury fits in.
That's a good question. The grand jury fits in once a police officer arrests, charges are issued. Certain charges go to preliminary hearing to find whether those charges are appropriate under the facts and circumstances of that case, or they go to the grand jury because they're a little bit more complex and require and have a victim involved in that case. So that's where the grand jury and preliminary hearing is a check for whether those are appropriate charges that we issued.
And I do know that we just recently got a report from the grand jury on the various departments that they have visited and or looked at their operations. And for those who have not read it, they should read it, but also learn a little bit more about the process on that level. Because again, it's not just you. There are a number of other factors that determine whether or not someone is charged with a crime and it moves forward. I also wanted you to talk a little bit more about the Neighborhood Accountability Board, because I'm a #1 fan of that. I used it along with Alderman McMillan at that time in the 19th Ward to clean up Jeff Vanderloo. You know, there was a time when you couldn't even drive through there, nevertheless walk through. So I see that you have a full team in place for that program. And if you could just give us a little bit more information on it, because that's a way to bring the community into criminal justice and fairness, and also having some ownership for taking care of their own neighborhood.
Well, thank you, Alderwoman. I think that this is important, the neighborhood accountability boards, because that is that strengthening of the community engagement that is needed for reforming the criminal justice system. What we found, and what I like to call it, is restorative justice types of models, where you have community boards set up in different communities. And so some of the things you're talking about, like loitering or different things that some people may say, well, yeah, you can send that to the municipal courts. But if we have a restorative justice model where these individuals come before the community and are able to understand what harm they're causing to the community, not to embarrass them, but to have the community embrace them and to hold them accountable, there's ways that we can build trust in the system before it even gets to my office. And that will reduce these slights of inhumanity, I think, that we're talking about. That is one of the reasons why people won't come forward when something big happens. And that's why we want to continue to expand these accountability boards and working with community members, because you'll be surprised that people who may commit an act in the community just wants to feel a part of the community and have felt like they're invisible. And this is also saying, we're not going to tolerate this. And that's from community saying what kind of community service they're going to do in that community. What kind of services are going to be provided to follow up if they're doing that work, working with and triaging with the circuit attorney's office, as well as the trauma therapists that we coordinate with the community of what we want to see for this individual so they can never come back and cause harm. But it's also accountability. Offenders are more afraid of facing the community than actually going to court. And so that's where this generations of incarceration culture we've created with the flawed policies of mass incarceration is crucial. A lot of young people are not afraid to go to prison because they have their fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, uncles, even grandparents now who are in prison. And so we have to as a community, address the holistic approach that we are talking about that reduces crime, but takes time. So I think those accountability boards are instrumental in that. And it brings together people in the community that would not talk, that understand each other's differences that we're talking about, understands the systemic racism that individuals who are arrested and stopped more than anybody in the whole state of Missouri, people of color and poor, they would have to, the community can understand them and understand how they can feel a part of the community and hold them accountable. So I think that's crucial, and look forward to really working to expand those in my next term.
Well, I want to say to you what I've said to a number of other elected officials as well as department heads. Now is the time when we must put aside everything else and we all come together and use all of our resources together. Because most of the things that people are talking about, when you say defund the police, most of the things they're talking about, we already have funded in various different departments. But we need to now look at how we realign this and how all of these departments work together to better serve our community. And for me, I'm going to be saying that from now on, because we've done it in the past, we can do it again. And we're just going to have to realize there's a new way of doing things. And this time, we can't put it aside and go back to old habits. This is going to be our future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Alderwoman, just to piggyback on what you're saying, I look forward to working with Cure Violence, because that's going to be instrumental in really strengthening those neighborhood accountability boards. Looking forward to being a part of the ecosystem of resources that we need to address the root causes that I talk about. Looking forward to engaging the public health model that I know can be successful and is successful and has results. So I appreciate you and look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Secretary. Oh my goodness, Madam Circuit Attorney. I'm so used to calling my secretary Madam Secretary.
Look, you got a secretary. Okay, Madam.
Hey, I share her with like 4 other aldermen, so
Right.
it's like having 1/5 of a secretary.
Great secretary then to deal with all the great alderwomen and aldermen, because she got a lot of work to do. You guys work hard, so yes. I know she's Madam is the appropriate title for her.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Do you have any parting words?
I just want to say I appreciate each and every one of you on this in the Public Safety Committee. I appreciate the criticism. I appreciate the questions. This is about working together, and I assure you that we're going to work together. I assure you that the police chief and myself are working to implement reforms, not just in my respective office, but I know he's instrumental in making sure those reforms take place in policing. You know, I look forward to really showing what we can do when we work together. And I just hope that we support reform, we support real facts, not divisive rhetoric. I believe that we all have a goal, and that's to make our city safe. And I believe we can do that. And I believe now is the time. And I think that I just want to, extend my condolences to Captain Dorn's family. I know his funeral services is today. We did apprehend and charge the individual that committed that most heinous, callous crime. So I look at this as Mr. George Floyd, how a police officer took the life of Mr. George Floyd. I also look at the callousness and carelessness of someone taking the life of Captain Dorn or anyone who loses their life to violence. So this is not saying that because of your occupation or station in life, we won't hold you accountable. But what we need to do is we all have to understand that we have to build trust. And when we build trust, which we can, and we treat everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of your occupation, we will have more people come forward when that violent crime driver commits crime, like what happened with Captain Dorn's individuals that we end up charging, because the community outcry was instrumental in doing those things. It wasn't just the circuit attorneys or the police department's good investigation. It was everyone did their job. And we have to look at everyone as a key stakeholder in violent crime, and the community is very important, and we can't discount them, but we have to support them, and we have to understand that our community is hurting. And I look forward to working with every one of you, and I support reform. So thank you and giving me this opportunity, and I appreciate you. And I look forward to anyone, please schedule with my office if you want me to come out, and I will give you these statistics, but I would love to explain it because I think that context also needs to be explained. But let me know and just, reach out and we'll start rolling. So I thank you.
Thank you again. We're going to go into the announcements. So I'm going to go around, ask the committee members to have any announcements, and then we're going to soon adjourn. Alderwoman Howard.
Nothing. Thank you.
Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard.
No announcements. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Muhammad. Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
Nothing.
Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard.
No announcements, thank you.
Okay, well, I thank everybody for participating today, and I'm going to call the public safety meeting adjourned. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.